Hello everyone, this is Mylixia. I am back with another deck. Today we are going to be going over the Zoolock, one of the decks that I really like because it is very cheap and super effective. I get questions every single day from Hearthstone players who are coming into my broadcast or who are coming into YouTube and are saying, hey, Hearthstone seems very pay to win. It seems like there's a lot of cards that I need to buy or to be able to earn. It's going to take a lot of time. How do I get around this? Can I play any decks that are really effective kind of right out of the bat? And that's what I want to show you today. I want to actually show you a deck that you can use almost immediately in your ranked play, and one that will be very effective and hard to stop. It'll also teach you a lot of the core concepts of the game. So let us get started with the Zoolock. So what are we really looking at? We're looking at a deck that focuses on 1 to 3 mana crystal Zergs. So it's almost everything in the deck either costs 1, 2, or 3 mana crystals. And the idea is that you play a lot of this stuff really quickly and just totally overwhelm your opponent. And there's not much they can do. In addition, pretty much everything in the deck is not only very cost efficient, but has secondary effects. So when we look at the deck, we'll actually talk about this. And finally, for the mid game, we have a lot of very high charge damage cards that do a lot of damage very quickly and finish the opponent off, and still don't cost that much. And we'll see that the costs of those charge cards are usually not relevant at the point we are in the game with the Zoolock. So I want to take a look at the deck real quick. I want to take a look at the deck that I'm messing with right now. This is my iteration of the deck, and I'm sure somebody has done this exact deck before I did it, so it's just the one I'm playing right now. And I like it quite a bit. You've got that, again, we're looking on that 1 to 3 focus. And you've got pretty much every card with some kind of power or effect. So you have 4 taunts very early in this deck, which is really strong, especially those Voidwalkers that deal damage too. Young Priestesses that potentially can buff your minions behind taunts by turn 2. Very good if you get those in the opening hand. Argent Squires, which are really annoying to deal with, and Abusive Sergeants for extra damage. And you're running those Soul Fires for a little bit of extra damage at the end, or to remove something you absolutely just can't deal with, that you know it's going to kill you really fast. So, Knife Jugglers help you really draw cards repeatedly, and then you put those cards down and just keep dealing damage to things. Harvest Golem, very cost efficient again. We're not running too many late game things in this version of this deck. Pretty much the highest mana card is the Doomguard, and I think that's pretty much core to any Zoo deck because you're getting a 5/7 that can charge, and that's a total of 10 damage worth of charge in this deck, which is really good since you've probably overwhelmed your opponent already. So let's talk about the strengths of this deck. So very fast rush, extremely hard to deal with for new players, and what I like to call undisciplined decks. So if you don't have an idea of what you want to do with your deck, if you haven't really kind of analyzed what cards are very cost efficient, you're kind of just playing with whatever, you're going to have a really hard time against the Zoo deck. And that's why I encourage new players to the game to play this deck, because it introduces you to ranked and you start to do very well very quickly. And it's very encouraging. As we talked about in sort of the at a glance section, almost all the cards are very cost efficient. You have things like Argent Squire, which take 2 sources of damage to remove for a 1/1 because of the Divine Shield. Very difficult to deal with, super hard to deal with. Or they have some kind of second ability. They have Charge, or they're a Harvest Golem that can respawn itself and be another little guy. And for everything is like very mana efficient. In addition, depending on the variation you're playing, but almost every Zoolock deck has a very high, annoying amount of charge. So you can at least do a lot of face hits, and you could get a lot of damage out on the board, in addition to the early game damage that you're being able to deal out and dish out to your enemy. But this deck is not really without weaknesses entirely. Some people tend to think that this is like the ironclad strongest deck. It's definitely not. The first weakness it has is there's no late game whatsoever. Beyond 5 mana, you've got nothing, and pretty much you're going to play a bunch of weenies. You're going to hope to take him out by mid-game, and if he gets his control on the board, and if he gets big minions on the board, especially ones with taunt, it'll be very hard to win. And you pretty much know if you've won or lost with Zoolock at like the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game. In addition, we've seen a lot of Druids coming out now, and a lot of them run Druid of the Claw, which is a very powerful taunt, a 4/6 pretty early in the game, especially if you're using Innervate. So that can really put a stop to Zoolock decks, and a lot of those Druids are kind of causing problems now for the Zoolock. So that's another issue we want to watch out for in terms of weaknesses. And if we take a look at Playstyle, see if I can center in on that. All right. It's a pretty simple deck, more simple than a lot of the decks that we work with. So you want to mulligan very aggressively for 1 to 3 mana drops, which means if you have one of your 4 mana drops, like a Defender of Argus drop, or even if you have like a 3 mana drop come out, you might want to consider mulliganing that unless it's like maybe a Harvest Golem or something that's very effective. You want to go for those 1 to 2 efficient drops. Ideally get a Voidwalker or a high taunt on the board very, very quickly. Put a Young Priestess or a Knife Juggler behind that and start to ramp up your power. You want to operate very, very quickly. Play it as efficiently with mana as possible. You don't want to waste any mana with this deck. You should, like, if you have the choice to draw, and then you can't play anything because everything else is 2 mana, you should probably play 2 cards that are 2 mana first. Get those out on the board. And then don't draw aggressively until you're in, like, turn 4, 6-ish, and you've sort of started to run out of cards you can play. Then you start to draw aggressively. Because your life is a resource as Warlock, and your life is a resource as Zoolock. You want to be drawing those cards to put them out on the board to keep your board control and keep your advantage. But let's talk about variations. So I have 2 variations I wanted to go over today before our game, and these are both pretty cool. So I actually took the Mortal Coils out of my Zoolock deck. I didn't find enough use for them, and I found that oftentimes I won't actually get the card draw from them, and they just don't fit with the theme of the deck, which is like kill the person as fast as possible, right? I'd rather run like either more weenie creatures or something along those. All right, so let's see what the Zoolock can do in ranked. And in my playtesting with this deck, I've run into quite a bit of ramp druids and some control, so I do think that the meta is adapting to deal with this deck, especially at higher ranks, but I definitely think it's very effective from rank 25. We'll see what we can pull off with this deck here. We are against a mage, possibly a freeze mage, after RDU took the victory for 3-0 against a Maz. So we drew 2 Doom Guards. We, of course, want to mulligan both of those and try to get 1s and 2s. And we did get all 1s, which is pretty good, actually. Especially with those Flame Imps. We can put a Taunt and a Flame Imp behind it, and it will be very difficult to deal with. Because then I'll only have his hero power and removal to deal with it. And if this is Freeze Mage, I've found that Zoo does pretty well against it. It could also be Aggro Mage. I've seen quite a bit of that in the meta as well. So we will coin. And I'm actually going to put down 2 Flame Imps. And I decided on that because I want huge presence on the board and the potential for 5 damage because I drew that Abusive Sergeant, which will actually do 5 damage. He's going to Frostbolt 1. That's fine.
You shall not pass.
When you think about it, we're pretty ahead because he did burn 2 mana to kill a 1 mana creature. Even though we took 3 damage for it, we're okay with that. That's probably all he can do this turn, right? So, instead of the Harvest Golem play, I'm just going to keep trying to get that board control. Do as much as damage as possible very quickly. And since the Juggler is behind a taunt, he probably either has to remove it or take the time to actually remove it with the hero power. That's going to take a lot of time and potentially a lot of resources. He doesn't have Flame Strike potentially for a few more turns. He's probably drawing for any kind of answer to this. Blizzard would be good. He goes ahead and plays a Mana Worm. And I don't much care about that. So instead of playing the Harvest Golem again, I'm most likely just going to draw. I should have drawn first right there, just to see what I got. We did get another Harvest Golem, and then we'll just go straight past. Do face. And we have the potential to play Harvest Golem and draw next turn. We already have a pretty huge advantage, and he's going to need to start board clearing. He doesn't have Blizzard till next turn, so
We have many secrets.
that potentially could be a nice barrier.
Someday I'll be just like you.
We will see. Let's draw first. Very nice. I'm going to play that. Do I want to go for damage or do I want to clear? I think I want to go for damage. And that is probably an ice block is what that is.
I fight.
We'll let him decide how he's going to remove the creatures.
You shall not pass.
And if he can. As he has 1 life, unfortunately we couldn't trigger ice block that turn, which is what that is. Most likely not a counterspell. Since he's attacking with minions, we know he doesn't have Blizzard. He does have a Flame Strike, though. Okay. That's the big mage clear. We're going to have to pick ourselves back up from that. Luckily, we have 2 Harvest Golems. They're very cost efficient. Almost makes you wish that I had played those before. And this is most likely a Freeze Mage, given the secrets. But it doesn't play exactly like it. Freeze Mage doesn't run Mana Worm or Kintor or anything, so I actually have no idea what this deck is, actually. It's built like a Freeze Mage, but some mad concoction of it. Let's see what he does. He's going to decide to attack with minions. Maybe go for that board clear. What we're looking for right now is any of our Doom Guards. We have a 1 in 9 chance of drawing one. Not that good. A polymorph. That seems like a desperation move. Interesting.
It's time for the
My shield for Argus. Job's done.
This is a very interesting game. We've already gone to late game and he managed to survive with 1 HP.
To Northrend.
Now he can attack for 8. We did get our Doom Guard, but I'm sure that's an ice block, which means he can win next turn. No, okay. I don't know what the secret was then. We did get our Doom Guard, so we did win that game. Alright, that's interesting. Actually didn't expect us to win that game. He had quite an advantage, but we could see that usually you have to start worrying about Zoolock as soon as the early game advantage wins and they defend your initial rush. You know you're in a little bit of trouble. But we did pick up that game, and great. Okay, so let's see what our Zoolock Variation 2 deck can do. We are against a Control Druid, most likely. I've been seeing a lot. But we have a pretty good starting hand. So I want to keep that Scarlet Crusader. I think I do. I'll keep this hand. Now I have a decent curve with the Amani Berserker and then the Scarlet Crusader. We have to overwhelm him very quickly within the first 5 or 6 turns. Otherwise, we will most likely lose.
It's time for the
Play the Amani Berserker, see how he deals with that, and then we can play the Scarlet Crusader. We can draw and Flame Imp depending on what we top deck here. And we'll see if he has a way to deal with this. He already burned one of his Wraths. He had actually 2. He actually drew a hand with 2 Wraths. That is not common, but very, very good against Zoo. I'm pretty sure he won't be able to remove that this turn. Which means it should do 5 damage with the Dark Iron Dwarf, plus a 4/4 on the board. He might play a Taunt or something, though. No, he wasn't able to remove it. Great. Okay, so... We're going to deal as much damage as possible, as quick as possible. And one advantage we have right now is that we actually have a lot of pretty big minions on the board pretty early. That's real good for us. We'll see what he does. Swipe. Okay. Probably an attack on the golem. Yeah, so the golem attacks. And we'll go with Voidwalker. And another 4/4 and a taunt. But now he's in Druid of the Claw range. We're likely to see one. We have quite a bit of damage next turn. Draws another swipe. Wow, all of his removal on the top deck, so this is pretty lucky right now. But we can play just about everything here. And he's removed a lot, so he must not have that much removal, but it did put him to late game. And he has the potential to win at this point, because he'll start putting down some pretty big stuff. Puts down a Yeti. See if he does anything else. Probably, he's confident might attack the 4/1. Okay. Means he thinks he can definitely win this. Not too worried about the damage, so. Draw first. You get an Argent Squire. No Blood Knight combo. Attack passed, and we actually have good amount of damage on the board right now. Considering he's burned 2 swipes, he'll need to play a taunt here, or he'll definitely be in trouble. If we get a Doomguard, he'll really be in trouble, but that's not a high chance right now. Good play. What else you got? If I were him, I would probably Yeti, and then attack with the hero power on the Scarlet Crusader. Looks like that's probably exactly what he's going to do. Good. No problems there. Hoping for Doomguard. We've got quite a bit of draw, so... Thunder of Argus. Not quite what we're looking for, but a little bit of extra damage is welcome. And we will lethal next turn unless he can clear a lot. Need to kill at least 2 minions. And we still have the potential for Doomguard, and we're doubling our chances on it every turn because we're drawing. So, he has to figure out what he's going to do here. He does play a taunt. That's good. Because that means he can clear the rest of the board behind that taunt. We don't have a huge amount of damage. But if we draw Doomguard, we still will win next turn so far. Or that. So that's game. One of our actual I didn't actually think about the Soulfire, but good stuff. So there we go. That's the Variation 2 Zoolock deck. And you can see how this deck is pretty darn strong. It's a good deck if you're trying to rank up quickly, especially in those early sessions of, you know, oh, I don't have enough cards, or I'm trying to get used to Hearthstone, or how do I learn? So that's the decks, and I hope this guide has been really useful to you. If you do like it, please toss the channel a subscription for more of the videos we do on various strategy games, and I would appreciate your subscription, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, especially if you got all the way to the end. You are awesome. I will see you again soon for another guide video, or perhaps another video on another game. Thank you very much. See you next time.